Hello, today we're going to be speaking about the Carnot Principles. So before we speak about the Carnot Principles, it's important to know the difference between reversible and irreversible processes, as these are very important concepts relevant to the Carnot Principles. So starting off with the reversible process, it's a process where we can proceed from an initial state to a final state and vice versa without any effect or losses to the surroundings. For example, the compression and expansion in a frictionless piston cylinder device is considered to be reversible. In reality, reversible processes do not exist in real life, like they're basically idealistic. On the other hand, an irreversible process is one that causes change or results in losses to the surroundings as the processes function. It is the opposite of a reversible process, as I just explained. All processes in real life are irreversible in nature. For example, the expansion of gas. When you open up a can of soda and you open up the can, the gas is coming out and it causes extreme expansion. This can be reversed back to its original and initial state. So why are these concepts of reversible and irreversible processes so important? Any cycle consisting of purely reversible processes would have the highest possible efficiency. So basically, we can conclude that the closer we come to reversibility, the more efficient the process would be.
Nicolas Léonard Sadi Carnot was born in Paris into a family that was distinguished in both science and politics. He was the first son of Lazare Carnot, an eminent mathematician, military engineer, and leader of the French Revolutionary Army. Carnot was referred to as the father of thermodynamics. He wanted to answer two questions about the operation of heat engines. The first question was, is the work available from a heat source potentially unbounded? Meaning, can we use 100% of the heat supply to produce work? In the second question, he asked about can heat engine, in principle, be improved by replacing the steam with some other working fluid or gas? He attempted to answer these in a memoir published as a popular work in 1824 when he was only 28 years old. It was entitled Reflections on the Motive Power of Fire.
While trying to answer these questions, he developed principles for heat engines, refrigeration systems, and heat pumps running on a cycle. The fundamental principles were: 1. All heat engines operating between the same two idle thermal reservoirs will have the same thermal efficiency, regardless of the cycle that is operating within these two reservoirs. This means that all reversible heat engines operating between the same temperature limits will have the same maximum thermal efficiency. 2. All refrigeration systems operating between the same thermal reservoirs will have the same coefficient of performance, regardless of the cycle running between these two temperature limits. The same concept applies to heat pumps and the corresponding coefficient of performance. This implies that all reversible heat pumps and refrigeration systems operating between the same temperature limits will have the same coefficient of performance. 3. For the same temperature limits prescribed by the reservoirs, any cycle consisting of solely reversible processes will have the highest possible thermal efficiency. If it is a heat engine, or the highest possible coefficient of performance, if it's a refrigeration system or heat pump. 4. Any irreversible cycle must have a lower thermal efficiency or coefficient of performance than a reversible one when operating between the same temperature limits.
The diagram shown here refers to Carnot Principles for a heat engine. In the diagram, we have three heat engines operating between the same temperature limits of 300 degrees Kelvin as a low temperature and 1000 degrees Kelvin as a high temperature. Suppose the first one is a reversible heat engine. Thus, all the processes that occur inside the heat engine are reversible. Suppose the first one has 70% thermal efficiency. According to Carnot's principles, this must represent the highest possible efficiency of any heat engine operating between 300 degrees Kelvin and 1000 degrees Kelvin. The second heat engine, which contains irreversible processes, must have lower efficiency than the reversible one. We can therefore also conclude that any heat engine having a thermal efficiency higher than the reversible one and also operating between 300 degrees Kelvin and 1000 degrees Kelvin would be impossible since it violates Carnot's principle. The same principles can be applied to a refrigeration system or a heat pump. In the diagram right here, we have three refrigeration systems that operate between the same temperature limits of 275 degrees Kelvin and 300 degrees Kelvin. Once again, given that the coefficient of performance of refrigeration is equal to 11, this represents the highest possible coefficient of performance of any refrigeration system operating between the temperature limits shown. If any irreversibilities occur, as in the second system, the coefficient of performance must be lower than 12. Any refrigeration system claiming to have a coefficient of performance higher than 11 and operating between these two temperature limits, as shown in the third system, would be impossible.